Now, Nyck De Vries has been one of the hottest talking points in the F1 world, but for all the wrong reasons. The Dutchman has been sacked from AlphaTauri after just 10 races in his first full-time F1 career. And it seems like he hasn't been able to impress one hell of a tough crowd in Red Bull and their sister team, that he has it in himself to be as competitive as he was last year in Monza. However, by sacking De Vries, Red Bull and AlphaTauri have dealt a very lethal blow to his potential future in F1, and although that door isn't completely closed for the 28-year-old, it certainly doesn't look as bright as he hoped when he signed the contract with AlphaTauri last year. So why is De Vries mad at Red Bull? And what was his honest share of this entire situation? Obviously, De Vries hasn't delivered the results that every one of us expected, and although it's not entirely his fault that he was put in the wrong car at the wrong time, there is more to be added to this entire context. For example, the majority of the mistakes he made had nothing to do with the car he's driving, such as the Canada blunder when he tried to overtake Magnussen and took both out of the track, and the crashes in Australia and Baku. These bloopers by De Vries only go to show that he was put under immense pressure, especially after he took an arrogant stance in Drive to Survive and said that he would be the leader of the team ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Now, it looks like the Japanese youngster has been able to prove himself as the more reliable choice for the Italian squad, and although AlphaTauri currently has one of the worst cars on the grid, which scored only 2 points, all of them were courtesy of Tsunoda, and De Vries has been nothing but a disappointment in his first 10 races. Yes, the amount of time he was given is definitely not enough for us to judge whether or not there was more improvement hidden behind his talent, because he did come into F1 with a couple of titles, such as the F2 and Formula E championships. But in this sport, there aren't many drivers that have the luxury of having a couple of years until they pursue their team to believe they're made out of F1 cloth. And De Vries was certainly not one of them. While we're happy to see him finally get his shot in Formula 1, the evidence of his underperformance was evident. And this is something that Helmut Marko has opened up about. When talking about this matter, the Austrian went on to say, "We contracted Nyck because he performed great at Monza last year. We expected him to be at least equal to his teammate Tsunoda this year, but that was not the case. Actually, he was always 3/10 slower than Yuki. We saw no improvement. We had to do something. Why wait? And what do 2 more races matter if you don't see any improvement? Nyck is a very nice guy, but the speed just wasn't there." Well, Nyck has definitely found himself in the wrong environment for a driver who wants to prove that 20 years of age is not too much for starting an F1 career. And the fact that Franz Tost went out and publicly called his engineers for not trusting them when they say they have more upgrades coming for the car in the beginning of the season goes to show that the dysfunctionality and the toxicity in the team were at a level that definitely has the capacity to ruin the career of an F1 driver. On top of that, De Vries had to deal with the fact that Tsunoda has finally found pace in the car he's driving for his 3rd consecutive year. And this happened at the worst possible time, just when Nyck was supposed to deliver top-notch results and be the greatest rookie out there. What he did in Monza last year was impressive, and that certainly drew the eyes of everyone on the grid. But there is one thing that Nyck needs to remember during this axing process: he was not the first choice of Red Bull. The only reason why Red Bull signed him was that Colton Herta, the IndyCar 500 superstar, was unavailable at that team, which only goes to show that the team didn't have as much trust in Nyck as he would have originally projected. Obviously, this was also shared by Helmut Marko, who said that Nyck De Vries was one of the few drivers that caused a disagreement between him and Christian Horner. And all it took for AlphaTauri to put Ricciardo back in a seat was 1 hour of competitive lap times in the RB19 in Silverstone's tyre test. Furthermore, Marko didn't stop with the bashing process of De Vries, one that made the Dutchman very angry, as the Austrian continued. He's 28, has a lot of experience, and has also been able to gain a lot of knowledge as a test driver in multiple F1 cars. You can't compare him to a young rookie, in my opinion. At the end of April in Baku, he started the weekend well, and I thought he would perform better, but then he crashed again. Unfortunately, he didn't do one super lap that really amazed us. Well, it goes without saying that De Vries' performance has been on the decline ever since he signed the contract with AlphaTauri. But was the Italian squad in the right to bash him to this extent and fire him after just 10 races spent with the team? And yet again, why did the team pull the plug on the Dutchman and decide to go with Ricciardo, the driver who's likely likely eyeing a return with Red Bull and not a retirement route with AlphaTauri. As of now, De Vries can also be mad about the fact that he doesn't bring as much marketing and financial value to AlphaTauri as Ricciardo, and there's nothing wrong with that. Ricciardo has been the gem of the F1 sport, and bringing back an 8-time race winner would definitely bring the team where it needs to be, fighting for points in the midfield. However, Ricciardo has had 2 bad years with McLaren, and AlphaTauri has designed a car that has the same issues as the MCL 36, the last car that Ricciardo drove as a full-time F1 driver, braking issues and entering the corners with rear instability. So, replacing De Vries with Ricciardo might not be the smartest thing that AlphaTauri did, but from a marketing and financial point of view, he's definitely going to pour a lot of attention and therefore revenue into the Italian squad, which would benefit them a lot in these hard times. What De Vries couldn't accept is the fact that everyone out there was given multiple chances to prove themselves. Even Mick Schumacher had 2 full seasons with a car that was unable to score points in Schumacher's first event. However, the replacement options out there for Haas weren't as good as AlphaTauri's choices right now. So this is just yet another reason why De Vries has no one but himself and his fate to blame for what's happening right now. But what he feels is that he was definitely on a higher level coming from the lower ranks in F2 compared to his colleagues who made it up in the professional ranks in F1, such as Albon, Norris and Russell. And when talking about this matter, the 28-year-old went on to say, "I don't want to be arrogant at all, but Norris and Albon were, in my eyes, really no better than me. Norris won only 1 race, Albon won 4, and I won 3. It's definitely an arrogant stance from De Vries, and the fact that he entered F1 with such high confidence might have backfired on him desperately, to the point of him not even having a chance to race in F1 yet again. Yes, De Vries was seen talking with Toto Wolff in Monaco hours after being axed from AlphaTauri, but what he needs to remember is that his role has been replaced by Mick Schumacher, and he has to fight yet another exceptional young talent right now for the background seat in Mercedes, a job that Mick is doing nearly perfectly for the Silver Arrows. What the future holds right now for De Vries is an answer that he couldn't answer himself. But one thing is for sure, the arrogance and self-confidence with which he entered the sport, mixed with the worst car on the grid, have backfired very badly on him, and that in itself is enough for him to seek a future elsewhere in the racing competitions. As of now, the best choices that are available for Nyck are the WEC, the World Endurance Championship, in which Nyck has participated in his racing career, or potentially a return to the Formula E Championship. Who knows, maybe he'll receive another chance in F1, but after having a miserable debut of 10 races with AlphaTauri, ones that were partly his and his car's fault, then I guess he could just wave goodbye to his F1 career.